Meet the BYD Shark 6, the latest addition to the Chinese brand's lineup and a very, very important model. That's because it's playing in one of the biggest segments up against Ford Ranger, Toyota Hilux, and it is a very, very different ute. It does things very differently. It can run on electric. We're going to tell you all about that. I'm here in China for a bit of a sneak peek, a bit of a taste test, a first drive of this crucial new model. And here are all the things you need to know about the Shark 6. Under the bonnet is an engine, but a very different engine to what you normally get in a ute. Instead of a turbo diesel, this one's a 1.5 litre, 4-cylinder turbocharged petrol engine. It's also got two electric motors, one at the front, one at the rear for all-wheel drive. And instead of driving the car, that motor mostly acts as a generator. So above about 70 kilometres an hour, it can give you more thrust, it can directly drive the wheels, but in most instances, you're going to be relying on those electric motors. So it does things very, very differently. When it's running in hybrid mode, it uses around about 7.9 litres per 100 k's. So sort of similar, a fraction less than your average turbo diesel, but you can also charge it and run it purely on electricity, around about 80 kilometres just on the electric. So it's a dual cab ute and you've got a reasonably spacious tray in here, but what's underneath this car is also quite different in terms of the suspension. So independent suspension up front, that's normal with a ute. At the rear, it's also got independent suspension. It's got coil springs. It's all about trying to improve that on-road handling, make it more of a user-friendly ute around town and out on the open road. Off-road, it can still do that, but certainly a lot of the focus has been on making this ute drive better than most of the others. Now, another thing the Shark 6 does really, really well is the look, the design. It's got that huge BYD sign stamped across the grille really proudly. The proportions, it's not too busy down the side, all that sort of stuff is done really well. It looks tough, it looks chunky. People want them to look tough, and this one certainly nails the brief. Now that bold styling, it flows through to the interior as well, where you've got some great finishes, some really cool attention to detail. I love this red stitching and highlights. So all of that stuff looks really cool. And it's sort of a bold layout. You've got nice big grab handles here, other ones up here. Huge touchscreen in the center, and like all BYDs, it does rotate through 90 degrees. But there's one thing missing from this car, which you usually get on a proper off-roader, and that is a dual range transfer case. It's designed to allow you to do that really slow speed, hardcore off-roading. But because it's running electric motors, they already have heaps of torque. They do the low speed stuff really, really well. So BYD said, don't bother with it. So this is our first go of the BYD Shark dual cab ute. Straight away from the inside, you see that they've obviously put a lot of work into technology, features, the equipment, everything in it is pretty high quality. In terms of the ute market, it's certainly towards the upper end. So we're on off-road here, some pretty mild off-road, but gravelly and a little bit hilly, a few bumps here and there. The first thing you're noticing is how quiet it is. Obviously at the moment we're running in pure electric mode. So this car has claimed range, EV range of 100 kilometres. Now that's NEDC. By the time you convert that to a more realistic figure, you're probably looking at around about 80 odd kilometres of EV range. And we've got some little whoops here that are putting the wheels through, I guess, trying to extend the suspension. And you're noticing there that through that it actually seems to have a reasonable amount of suspension travel. So all up, we've got 230 millimetres of clearance. So that's right up there with some of the best utes. So climbing here a pretty steep hill. Having to give it a fair bit of throttle to get the motors to sort of wake up. But what you're noticing is you've got a fair bit of torque. It's got that pulling power, which is really important for this off-road stuff. It's obviously pretty hard to get an idea here of what this car is going to be like in everyday driving, out on the highway, around the suburbs, and that's where realistically most people are going to drive a ute. We'll get a bit of an opportunity for that later on, but for now it's more of this slow speed off-road work. So that is the BYD Shark 6 in a nutshell. There's certainly plenty to like on the surface, although we've really only had a tiny taste test, a lot more to learn about this car. The huge unknown, of course, is the pricing. It needs to be competitive with those turbo diesels, possibly even undercut them because there's some big names in there, but it has the potential to shake up that ute segment. We'll obviously bring you all the news on this. We'll do a proper review in Australia in time. In the meantime, don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the little bell button, tell us what you think in the comments below. Thanks for watching, see you next time.